Hey YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. It is Wednesday and I'm your host Megan. Hey YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. Today is Wednesday. I am your host Megan, aka Sabirasri, and today we're talking about pagan leadership. So the question is from Danni. It says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on pagan leadership. Specifically, there's been some growing discussion about the need for an educated and dedicated priest or priestess or clergy leaders within the community. Do you feel that the community needs to devote more time and energy to educating our leaders, or do you feel that we are better served within the current system of spontaneous leadership? Do we need a dedicated spiritual leadership, or can a person have a day job and be a leader? Okay, so, here's where we're at. I think that it really depends on what tradition you fall into, because I feel that, unfortunately, this idea of pagan leadership isn't something that is going to make everybody happy. It's not something that we can have in universal leadership. I also don't believe that we can have just a select group either to sort of represent all the different types, because there are far too many types and traditions for us to be able to have any sort of clear representation. And if you did try and lump certain ones in together, I feel that people would feel they weren't being represented in the right way. And ultimately, what would happen is it would lead to problems within the community. It would lead to organized religion and all of the problems that go along with organized religion. So I'm a family tradition, which means my family is the leadership. Elders in the family, they're the leaders, and so on and so forth. That's how it works. In that tradition, it works really well. Other people have traditions such as Gardenian Wicca, where they're going to have their own hierarchy of priests and priestesses. Within people's individual tradition, there are some hierarchical structures already in place. That is to say, unless you get into the solitary practitioners, unless you get into the eclectic pagans. Those are the ones that are primarily operating without any type of leadership. And so more often than not, we see them leaning toward authors and influential leaders in the community for guidance. These are often people who really could use some mentorship and oftentimes really try and seek it out. And unfortunately, there just are not enough mentors in the community. So I feel that what I would like to see more of in the pagan community is mentorships. I do not believe that the pagan community should have any sort of formal leadership. I'm going to say this is my opinion. Anyone can disagree. This is just how I personally feel. And there are certainly many good arguments for either side of things. I would love to see us be able to communicate on a wider, more global stance. And if that were the case, I would be fine with the idea of electing an elected type position, a voluntary position that had very specific term limits that could not in any way go over. My biggest problem with our current government is that you can have career politicians, these people that are in for life, and that's their career, when it's supposed to be a civil servant. It's supposed to be you do your time and then you get out and you let somebody else come in. That way we hear a broad range of opinions and ideas. So I would be fine if we had an elected group that were going to represent the general consensus, the general values of everything under the pagan umbrella, and could, go through the whole process, and we could elect the person that we feel like might best represent us, with the knowledge that this person does not practice a religion that is the same as every single person in their representative body of people. That this person would merely be representing the interests of the greater body of their constituents. And that would be okay for me, because I feel that we really are completely not represented when it comes to the worldwide stage in terms of religion. So I would be okay with that, as long as we weren't having somebody from Wicca and somebody from Asatru and somebody from the Golden Dawn. As long as it wasn't very specific traditions that we had coming into this, I would be fine with that. As long as it was somebody who could, who we would elect that would merely represent the totality of all the pagan traditions without saying this is the one thing that I am representing, and these are the types, because there are just too many different traditions to be able to have them all walk into a room and talk to each other, let alone try and talk to religious leaders on a worldwide stage. So I feel that pagan leadership in the community is essential. I feel that one of the problems that we have in the faith is miscommunication and misunderstandings with the outside world, as well as stereotypes. I also think that we are horribly represented in the media, and I think that unfortunately part of the pagan community actually likes the way we're represented in some ways. I'm not saying I don't either. I loved the show Charmed. I loved the movie Practical Magic, though that one represented us in a slightly better way. It's still, I mean, come on. There was a lot of problems with that movie. And there's so many problems with Charmed or with whatever other movie might be out there, Witches of East End now, or TV shows. I mean, we are so misrepresented in the media that it becomes almost laughable when you say, well, I'm pagan or I'm a witch. And when people don't understand that it's a religion, that's when you have these stereotypes that can really be hurtful and can really be damaging to young people. And so I think that if we had more pagan leadership, if we could get the word out there that this is a religion and a craft, a magical craft, and the two can be combined as well. They can be one and the same, or they can be separate. If that information is out there, and yeah, okay, we have the media stuff, and I'm not saying that there is no place for that. It's just, as long as that it is something that is known to be false and known to be fiction, while the religion is known to be true, I think that that would be okay. I think that too many times people want to peg pagans in this role of wannabe magic users from some sort of movie or TV show. And I think that's really sad because they don't understand the religious part of it, and they don't understand the energy behind it. And I think that, unfortunately, that's the way we're often viewed in the greater stage of the world. And pagan leadership could help a lot with that. I believe that that starts with mentorship. If you are somebody in the faith who feels that they are ready to mentor somebody else, I highly recommend volunteering your time. I feel that classes are very important. If you feel like you have knowledge that you want to share, look up a local pagan chapter, a local coven, see if they have teaching space available, and try and pass on some of your knowledge. And if you have extra money around, or if you have the time and the desire, take a couple of classes and maybe meet some people there, or meet the teacher, and maybe you can get a mentor. And that's where the money part stops. I'm a big believer in that mentorships cannot involve money. I know that there's differing thoughts on this. This is my personal opinion. If you are mentoring somebody, you should not be charging them. I do not believe in that. I believe that yes, you can teach a class for a wide audience and charge per head, especially for materials and for your time, absolutely. But a mentorship, that is something like in my family's tradition where it is this one-on-one passing down of knowledge. And that can't have a price tag. That's just important to me. So I guess to wrap that up, I think that no, I would not like having any sort of tradition-centered pagan leadership, like having a actual clergy, organized type religious hierarchy. I would like to have a elected or a couple of elected figures, maybe a male and a female, to represent the pagan community as a whole and some of their goals for the world and their goals for religious tolerance and acceptance, things like that. However, I wouldn't want them to be pushing their specific tradition. I would want them to be more a representative of the whole umbrella of pagan culture and not specific to one tradition. And I would also really advocate for pagan mentorship. I think that we need to pass on our knowledge, and too many times I think that people end up struggling or not moving forward in the faith because they have questions that they can't get answered online or they can't get answered in a book, and they struggle and they question. And I think that if we had more pagan mentors, we would have people that not only felt more confident in the faith, but also felt more prepared to pass on their faith to their own families. And I think that that would bring about another generation, and a generation that maybe could grow up in a way that is through tolerance, love, light, and happiness. So that's generally how I feel about the topic, and hopefully that answered some of your questions. Feel free to post any questions below. I will try and answer them. I usually can only do it for a certain amount of time. I'll try and come back at other times, but you can always message me on my personal channel as well. And as always, guys, have a wonderful week, and blessed be.